So, Jujutsu Kaisen has officially ended, meaning everyone is now scrambling to find something to take its place. Fortunately, the answer has been right under our nose this entire time, because Kagurabachi is only getting better and better. And also, if you're wondering why I'm doing this video with my cam on, it's because Kagurabachi is only 50 chapters long and there's no anime, so unless you want me to fill the video with clips of Gojo going like this for like 10 minutes straight, then deal with it. Now, if you don't already read Kagurabachi or have somehow never even heard of it, then please go and read it before watching any videos on it. It's only 50 chapters deep at the moment, and already I think it's better than the first 50 chapters of Jujutsu Kaisen, and its popularity is definitely only climbing higher and higher. It is the manga which is going to fill Jujutsu Kaisen's big empty void that it's left behind, and it's also where a lot of readers and content creators are moving over to. Why? Because it's amazing. If you are already a reader of Kagurabachi though, you should already know exactly how great it is, and this video should definitely be to your liking. And so today, I am going to be explaining the entire Kagurabachi power system by explaining every important sorcerer and their abilities so far, as well as telling you guys which I think are the strongest, because come on, it's for fun and everybody loves a little bit of power scaling every now and again, you know? Anyway, enough yapping, let's just get right into it. Now please keep in mind that we're in very early stages of the manga, so there's probably a lot more secrets to the power system that we have not discovered yet. But for now, this is what we've got. Basically, every single person has spirit energy, just like every other shonen manga you've ever read. Now sorcerers train to draw out their spirit energy and then make it circulate around their body in order to enhance their physical stats and also use their innate sorcery techniques. And just like with every other power-based manga you've ever read, the most skilled sorcerers can draw out more spirit energy and then use it to further enhance their stats to just be better than everybody else. Everybody also has an innate technique, just like in Jujutsu Kaisen, meaning that when they output their spirit energy, it actually manifests and take the form of a certain ability. For example, the first sorcerer that Chihiro ever faces is a guy who can create matter and then make it explode, meaning that he can just create bombs. Now, the longer a sorcerer actually practices their form of sorcery, the deeper their understanding of it becomes, allowing them to actually create new applications of how to use it. And this applies to the enchanted blades too, but we'll get to that in a bit. It's also important to note that sorcery can be inherited, meaning that multiple sorcerers can have the same sort of ability if they're related. But it's also very important to point out that most of the time, sorcerers can only have one type of sorcery at once. There are certain exceptions to this, like with the first patriarch of the Sazanami Clan, and now Hakuri Sazanami, the absolute goat of all of Kagurabachi. Like I said though, this is extremely uncommon and not something that you should normally take into consideration. And then there is the Datenseki, or Datenseki, or Datensekai, whatever. It's basically just a really rare natural ore which amplifies spirit energy to the point where it completely overwhelms your body, making you go boom. You quite literally explode if you so much as touch it. Now, the only person in all of history who's managed to somewhat harness the Datenseki is Kunoshige Rokuhira, also known as Chihiro's dad. He managed to harness the Datenseki and create the 7 enchanted blades, or at least there was 7. Now there's only 6 because, you know, Cloud Gouger went boom, but there was 7. Now these blades each have an owner that they are bound to via something called an eternal contract. And this basically means that the sword can only be used by its current owner. No one else will be able to utilize it while that person is alive. The way that the blades are passed on to other people is by the original owner dying and someone else claiming the blade, which will make the eternal contract pass over to them. Now, the enchanted blades actually amplify spirit energy so much that it causes it to physically manifest into different forms. And just like with normal sorcery, the more experience a user has with the blade's abilities and the deeper their understanding becomes, the more new applications they will be able to create and utilize in their fights. I'll of course get into the exact strength and abilities of each blade when I start explaining all of the sorcery in detail, but for now, you get the idea. Now, in the manga's first major arc, the underground criminal known as Junichi Sojo actually gained possession of both an enchanted blade and some raw Datenseki. By using the flesh of a little girl called Char, who actually is from a clan of sorcerers with regenerative abilities, Sojo managed to create a temporary way of harnessing the Datenseki. And I say temporary because anyone who uses it eventually goes boom. But it basically allows the sorcerer who uses it to gain abilities similar to enchanted blades where their spirit energy is physically manifested, and it makes them crazy strong. This does also mean that the people who use this temporary Datenseki don't have any time to fully understand or develop their abilities, so they'll never be quite as strong as a true enchanted blade user, but whatever. Oh, and then there is Hiyuki's Flamebone, which is not actually an enchanted blade, but it is said to be strong enough to actually rival the enchanted blade's power. We'll move on to Hiyuki. We'll move on to Hayuki and her flame bone later on in the video though, because that is a really interesting topic. And yeah, that's pretty much Kagurabachi's power system made very simple, and that's because it is pretty simple, at least so far in the story it is. I suspect there will be some more things yet to come, some more twists and some more exceptions to rules that we've already been told, just like with Hakuri. But anyway, let's move on to the more juicy stuff where I explain every important sorcerer and then you shout at me for being wrong and not having any reading comprehension. Now, the first form of sorcery I want to talk about actually comes from the Sazanami Clan, which has introduced us to two different types of sorcery. There is the inherited ability of ISO, which is basically just a really powerful shockwave. And then of course there is the Storehouse, which is an ability passed down via rituals, and it allows the user to access a separate space controlled solely by them. Kind of similar to domain expansion, to be honest. Now, in normal cases, when this Storehouse ability is passed down, it actually replaces the ISO technique that the sorcerer would have originally had. But this is not necessarily the case for the first ever patriarch of the Sazanami clan, and now the legendary Hakuri Sazanami, because they are actually talented enough to maintain both types of sorcery at once, which is something that should not normally be possible. ISO itself is already an incredibly strong form of sorcery, which is capable of causing some insane destruction. But from a utility perspective, the Storehouse is way more useful, and it will also play a key role in retrieving the enchanted blades. Now, the Toe are actually a Sazanami squad formed from Kiora Sazanami's children, the strongest of which being Soya and Tenri. But Soya was eventually bested by the newly awakened Hakuri, and the rest of the Toe were literally off-screened by Shiba, who then threatened to put out his cigarette in Tenri's eye. Despite the users that we've seen not really being the strongest in the verse, I still think sorcery like ISO and the Storehouse are among the absolute coolest abilities that we have seen so far. And honestly, I cannot wait to see Hakuri fully master them and bring out their full potential. I already know he is going to be so strong in the future. Okay, before moving on to the enchanted blades, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the strongest sorcerers that we have seen who do not possess one of these enchanted blades. And spoiler alert, they are all Kamunabi or ex-Kamunabi sorcerers, some of whom even fought in the Seiti War. First off, there is Azami, who is a very high-ranking Kamunabi sorcerer that is actually put in the same sort of category as Shiba by Genichi Sojo. In fact, even with Cloud Gouger, Sojo was very cautious of fighting Azami and Shiba, which implies that they have a reputation of being crazy strong. Azami has an ability which lets him create energy bolts from his fingers, but we really haven't seen him use that much yet, so we don't know how strong it is. Hopefully he gets involved in a very big fight soon though, because he is so cool and I really want to see more of him. In fact, I think Kagurabachi needs to maybe take the focus off Chihiro sometimes and give the side characters a moment to shine, just like it did with Hakuri. I think seeing moments like that from characters like Azami and Shiba would be really sick. And speak of the devil, there is then the ex-Kamunabi member Togo Shiba, who is also a war veteran and family friend of the Rokuhiras. He is also my personal favorite character because fucking look at him. Now, he's often the one explaining how sorcery works and filling that mental role for both Hakuri and Chihiro, which obviously suggests that he's very knowledgeable. Shiba also showcases how skill is important when enhancing yourself with spirit energy, because he has some crazy impressive feats like crushing solid concrete with nothing but his foot. Now, Shiba actually possesses a form of teleportation sorcery, which leads to us getting one of the greatest manga panels of all time. I mean, just look at the perspectives that this guy uses when drawing his damn fights. It's so good. Shiba also fully off-screened 3 of the Toe members in a 1v3 before threatening to put his cigarette out in Tenri's eye. Like, how can you read this and then not find Shiba to be the coolest character in the whole series? I don't get it. And then of course there is the Kamunabi's strongest sorcerer and one of the most badass female characters of all time, Hiyuki Kagari. She wields Flamebone, a weapon said to rival even the enchanted blades in strength. Not only can Hiyuki go toe-to-toe with enchanted blades though, I don't think she has even come close to revealing its full strength yet. And I think that because she was ordered to use Flamebone only up to the torso, whatever that means, but it does kind of imply that there are levels to its power and she is currently limiting it. And just like with the enchanted blades, Flamebone has a range of different applications. For example, she can wrap her arm in it and then deliver a flaming punch to her opponent. And this punch is so strong that even Chihiro's Aka ability couldn't fully absorb its impact. Fortunately, Hiyuki has been heavily involved with the current arc and will hopefully have a fight where she can let loose a little bit soon. I also desperately want to find out the origins of Flamebone because, like, how are you just casually introducing a weapon that is said to rival the enchanted blades? Why is no one else curious about this? But yeah, overall, Azami, Shiba, and Hiyuki are definitely the strongest characters we have seen that do not possess enchanted blades. In fact, they are so strong that they can compete with inexperienced enchanted blade users or temporary Dasanseki users, which is no laughing matter. Anyway, let's move on to the real juicy stuff involving Rokuhira's enchanted blades. Kunishige originally created 5 enchanted blades which were said to turn the tides of the Seiti War in their favor. Kunishige later created the 6th and strongest enchanted enchanted blade known as the Shinuchi, which is what actually finally won them the war. Now, only a fragment of the Shinuchi's power has been revealed to us, so there isn't really much to say on it other than it seems strong as fuck. It is literally so broken that it overwhelms the eternal contract binding it to the current owner, allowing others like Kyora to temporarily use it. And I say temporarily because they do eventually end up looking like this. I mean, when facing Chihiro, Kyora didn't even have to fully unsheath it to release a crazy amount of power, and Chihiro confirms that it can actually slice without even needing to be unsheathed at all. If it's already this dangerous with only a fraction of its power being used, then just imagine how strong the original wielder could have been when he used the blade's full power. Also, the theme of the Shinuchi seems to be based on plants and insects, which is suspiciously similar to a certain John Hishaku style of sorcery, but we'll get into that more a little bit later. Now, Cloud Gouger is quite simple. There are three main abilities that it possesses. There's Mei, which is a lightning-based attack, there is Ko, which is water-based, and there is Yu, or Yui, which is ice. And again, pronunciation, I'm sorry. After his first encounter with Chihiro, Sojo actually learned how to use Mei to cloak himself in the lightning power instead of discharging it, meaning that he massively buffed his speed and power, which is ultimately how he defeated the entire anti-Cloud Gouger squad. Mei itself is incredibly powerful and would just straight up kill most sorcerers, but that combined with water and ice makes for a stupidly overpowered kit. Now, Mei does actually have a charge up and cooldown time before a big blast can be released, but this can be compensated for by mixing a lower level Mei blast with water from Ko, because, you know, electricity and water is like, it's not good. Basically, it's strong as fuck, but it's also kind of irrelevant now because Chihiro hit Sojo with one of those main character power-ups and then completely destroyed the blade. Chihiro then reclaimed it and released the last of its power to help take down Kyora Sazanami and the Rakuzaichi auction. But I'm pretty sure Cloud Gouger is now gone for good. We're never going to be seeing that again. Most likely. This, of course, brings us to the main character's enchanted blade known as Enten. Kunishige basically ended his legacy by crafting a secret 7th blade known as Enten for his son Chihiro. And regardless of strength, Enten is undoubtedly the absolute coolest of the enchanted blades that we have seen. Just like Cloud Gouger, it also has 3 main abilities, but just like with all other types of sorcery, you can unlock new applications by deepening your understanding of it. Now, first off, there is Kuro, which is represented via a black goldfish. This move is actually very simple. It allows Chihiro to send a massive slash of spirit energy flying at his opponent, kind of similar to a dismantle from Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, there is actually another application of Kuro called Kuro Shred, which is so unbelievably cool. It's basically where he fills up a space with loads of mini goldfish and then sends a load of mini slashes flying at his opponents. Again, kind of similar to Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine from Jujutsu Kaisen. However, it takes up the same amount of spirit energy that a normal Kuro does. And then there is Arca, which is represented by a red goldfish because, you know, Arca means red. Now, this ability allows Chihiro to absorb an incoming attack and then replicate it once by firing it right back at his opponent. And then finally, there is Nishiki, which is represented by both a red and black goldfish kind of mixed together. This is a cloaking ability which allows him to cover himself in spirit energy and massively enhance his physical stats. I mean, it literally allowed him to keep up with Sojo while Sojo was using a similar cloaking ability which shrouded his body in the power of Mei. So yeah, from the get-go, Chihiro was just crazy strong because Enten is broken. Over the course of these 50 chapters, Chihiro has taken out just a load of irrelevant fodder, but he also took down Sojo and Kyora, who both possessed enchanted blades. And he also took an arm off the Hishaku's leader, John Yura Hishaku, with only a broken Cloud Gouger. Although I do kind of suspect that John might have been holding back and fucking around a bit. But still, it's crazy impressive. This guy is literally the main antagonist, and in their first encounter, Chihiro has taken an arm off him. And speaking of John, the final thing that I want to talk about in this video is actually the Hishaku in general. Now, Hirohiku, who Chihiro is currently facing, isn't even the main boss, and he seems to be fully confident in going toe-to-toe with an enchanted blade using only their innate sorcery. Now, the really interesting thing that I want to talk about is the sorcery that John Yura Hishaku and Hatshaku both seem to have. It seems they both have a strange plant-based sorcery where they could summon and manipulate vines and plants that somewhat resemble bonsai trees, maybe? We haven't even come close to seeing their full strength yet though, and for all we know, this isn't even their main innate sorcery. What I find interesting about it though is that it reminds me a lot of what we have seen from the Shinuchi, which leads me to believe that the Hishaku could maybe have something to do with how Kunishige actually made the Shinuchi in the first place. After all, we know pretty much nothing about this group or their relation to Rokuhiro. I'll save that one for a theory video later down the line though. Basically, the Hishaku ringleaders are crazy strong and they all seem confident enough to fight against enchanted blades like Enten. And they're also just plotting something crazy which I'm sure we're gonna see soon, so you really shouldn't underestimate them. Overall though, this is pretty much everything you need to know about Kagurabachi Kagurabachi's power system so far. The general aim of the video was to make Kagurabachi's sorcery as easy to understand as possible, and also briefly summarize what each character's sorcery is and roughly how strong each of them are in relation to each other. It also was just a bit of fun because I can't lie, I really wanted to show off my new background, and I also just really wanted to talk about Kagurabachi. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more Kagurabachi content, then make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, feel free to join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, links below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in a bit.